fighter has the highest fight IQ?
I don't think there's nobody in the game that has the fight IQ that I have.
Off the charts.
His fucking IQ
The
is
highest
insane.
fight IQ maybe ever.
This guy hits hard. He's tough. He's this, he's that. And this guy has a dream. But my fight IQ will win this fight.
Welcome to the Fight IQ podcast. Today I'm going to be going through all the important fighters from UFC 309, and I'm going to be giving you the absolute best matchups you can make for each of them moving forward. Let's get started. Start with the obvious one, Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall. Not really much to be said. It's crazy that they're even talking about putting Jon against Alex Pereira. Fight makes no sense stylistically, and I mean, Pereira started out his career as a middleweight. It just doesn't make sense. Tom has the interim belt, has defended it already. Make this fight. Not much more to be said on that one. Moving down the card. Charles Oliveira. Great performance. I believe he's injured. I think he said that he hurt his leg or his knee a couple weeks out from this fight, but didn't want to back out, and still got the win. Still got a very good win. Won 4 rounds out of the 5. even in the one round that he lost, you know, he got hurt, and then Chandler landed all those crazy blatant back of the head shots. Either way, Charles came out on top, and the next fight that he should get is the lightweight title. You know, lightweight has always been an exciting division, but right now it's a little bit stuck up at the top. I am actually kind of hoping that Arman Tsarukyan beats Islam. I know that's a weird take, but I want to see the Charles rematch with Arman Tsarukyan. Charles is my favorite lightweight. Even back when he was at featherweight, he was one of my favorite fighters. But he's one of my favorite fighters of all time, and I think probably the most exciting lightweight champ behind Islam. He might even have been a more exciting champion than Islam. But that's what I think you do. The winner of Arman versus Islam, I think that's what you do here. There's not too much else you can do at the lightweight division, unfortunately, right now. So let's move on to the next. Chandler. Chandler is the only guy from this card that I chose to make a next matchup for that didn't win on this card. And to me, Chandler does not need any more fights at the top of the division right now. He has bad losses at the top of the division. Each loss that he has when he was put against one of the best guys, he lost in pretty bad fashion. Even this last one where it was a decision, you know, and the Justin Gaethje one, which went to decision, he really didn't have anything for them in that fight. I mean, he had moments in the Justin Gaethje fight, but a lot of people have moments against Justin Gaethje. What I think you do for Chandler next is you give him a name. You know, you give him someone that people know, but you got to give him a step down. Maybe even a fight outside of the top 15, which is why I chose this fighter for his next matchup, Drew Dober. This would be a fun fight. It's a winnable fight for Chandler. It's also a winnable fight for Dober. You know, if he gets a win over Chandler, that does a lot for his name as well. I think this is the fight you make. I think it's just exciting. I think it's a good matchup stylistically for a fun fight. And you have it maybe be the featured prelim of a pay-per-view card. But I don't know if you go back and put Chandler on a pay-per-view after all these losses. I don't want to spend too much time on Chandler, so we'll go to the next fighter from the card, Bo Nickal. Now, I definitely talk shit about Bo Nickal. I don't think he's high-level UFC caliber. However, he gets wins in the UFC, and he hasn't lost yet, so you kind of can't talk too much shit about him. But he did have a sort of lackluster performance against Paul Craig. And I think you give him a test, but not a test in the sense of, oh, we're going to give him a top 15 guy, or we're going to give him someone who has really good striking to kind of test his striking. I don't think you do that. At first I was thinking, oh, maybe you make the Shara Bullet matchup. Shara, I think, just got a fight announced, so I don't think you can do that. But then again, Bo Nickal takes a long time in between fights, so maybe Shara wins that fight and then they decide to do that one. But that's not the fight that I think he should be given next. What I think he should be given next is someone who is gritty. He's going to have to go to war with this guy unless he just finds a way to take him down and hold him down, which this guy's not very easy to do that against. I think you give him a fight where he needs to be tested in terms of his heart and his grit, which is also someone who is slightly above him, a little bit closer to the top 15, and that person is Mr. RoboCop, Gregory Rodriguez. This is a tough fight for him. It's a tough fight for both of them. Gregory has to deal with the wrestling of Bo, because we know Bo is not just going to stand and trade with Gregory. He's going to need to go back to that wrestling a little bit. And he's going to have to dig deep for this one. Gregory is not an easy guy to get a win over. Rodriguez, I believe, is on a 3-fight win streak right now, which, even justifies even more why you should make this matchup. Gregory is ranked slightly above Bo. He's a little bit closer to the top 15. I think, if Bo can get a win over a guy like Gregory Rodriguez, I think a lot of the fan base that he kind of lost in the lead up to this last fight, I think he would gain back. I think beating a striker right now would not necessarily get the respect back that Bo wants. I think proving that he can actually be a fighter and go to war with someone like Gregory Rodriguez and come out on top, I think that does a lot more for his name right now than beating a striker like Shara or someone like Abus or someone. You know what I mean? I think going to war with Gregory is the best thing for Bo right now. And that being said, let's move on to the next. Mauricio Ruffy, he had a great performance, was fighting a guy who was allowed to weigh in at welterweight. You know what I mean? So he's essentially, Ruffy was ready to weigh in at 155 or 156, and essentially was forced to fight. Well, not forced, he could have said no, but he chose to fight a guy who they kind of let just weigh in at welterweight. They made it a catchweight bout, or, they actually gave it a name this time, super lightweight or something. But it was a catchweight bout, and then Hamis Yontab did not make the catchweight bout, and Ruffy still accepted the fight and had a really, really good performance. Hurt him multiple times throughout the fight, looked really slick, proved to be really, really hard to hit. Now, his next fight, I think you give him someone who, on paper, you would kind of think is sort of on his level. And this is who you put him up against next. Esteban Ribovics. Ribovics coming off a really, really nice win. I think he's on a 2-fight win streak. I think he knocked out Terrence McKinney. Yeah, that really nice head kick over Terrence McKinney. And then he beat Daniel Zellhuber, who Daniel Zellhuber is a problem on the feet. He's got, really good range. He's got a reach advantage over most guys in the division. And Ribovics was able to find his way, close the distance, and land really, really nice combinations on Zellhuber. I think it's going to be a little bit harder to find Ruffy. Ruffy just has a few more tools. He's not just a boxer. He's got great footwork, amazing eyesight. Like he seems to see everything coming. I think this is the next fight you make. I think this is a very winnable fight for Ruffy. However, Ribovics could put Ruffy in some damage here in this fight, which I think, like at this point in Ruffy's career, we don't just want to see him show out against every single guy he fights. I think Ribovics would bring the fight to him and be a little bit tougher. But I still would pick Ruffy to get this one done. Moving on to the next fight. Marcus McGhee, great performance against Jonathan Martinez, although, McGhee kind of almost got finished there in the third round with the calf kicks. That's Martinez's game, the calf kicks, and he was able to start finding those in round 3. But in rounds 1 and 2, it was kind of frustrating for Martinez. McGhee was the one throwing the volume. He was putting the pressure. He was kind of the one setting the pace in the first 2 rounds. And I think Jonathan Martinez is one of those fighters where he needs to come out in round 1 and set the pace. Otherwise, he does kind of tend to be a little bit stagnant and get caught looking throughout the fight. And the next fight that you give Marcus McGhee, which he's ranked, now that Marcus McGhee, assuming he takes Jonathan Martinez's spot at number 13, this is a guy who is ranked above McGhee currently. And honestly, not much more than I just think it would be a really good introduction for Marcus McGhee as his, kind of homecoming fight in the top 15 of the bantamweight division. And I just think it would be a really, really fun fight stylistically. And that is Song Yadong. Song Yadong doesn't have a matchup currently. I want to say he's coming off a loss. But I can't remember exactly. Either way, I think he's 2-3 in his last 3. Song Yadong is. They were just about to match him up with Umar Nurmagomedov, which I thought was kind of like a gift to both of them. It would have been a gift to Song Yadong in the sense that they're giving him a higher ranked guy. And then it would have been kind of a gift of a fight for Umar in terms of just a good matchup for Umar and a guy lower in the rankings. But I think this is the next fight you make. I think it's very exciting potentially. It could really propel Marcus McGhee if he has a good performance. And if Song Yadong has a good performance, it just kind of solidifies his spot in the top 10. So that's what I think you do. Next fight, David Onama. David Onama had a really good performance. Had a really close Darce, I think it was at one point. Can't remember whether it was a Darce or an Anaconda, but I think it was a Darce. Looked really, really clean on the feet. He did get his leg kicked quite a bit in round 1, but past that, he looked very, very good in the kickboxing. It was landing really, really nice, crisp, straight shots, and was landing kicks of his own. So David Onama, he's a guy that wins a lot in the UFC and has really good performances. I think you give him someone who is not in the top 15, but I could definitely see being in the top 15 very, very soon. He just recently had kind of a weird fight with William Gomi. Gomi was obviously trying to stall against him. He didn't want to get into a brawl with this guy. And this guy is Joe Anderson Brito. Joe Anderson Brito is a very good fighter. He beat Diego Lopez on the Contender Series. He's got great wins in the UFC. I think this is just not much more than like a really, really exciting stylistic matchup with two guys who are just on the brink of the top 15. And it could be a fun fight on the feet and on the ground. If this goes to the ground, they both have good scrambling ability. They both have good jiu-jitsu. I think this would be a really fun fight. Don't want to spend too much time on it, but I really think this is the best matchup you could make for David Onama next. Next up, Marcin Tybura. Really good performance over Renato Diniz, an undefeated kickboxer who everyone was super hype on, which I didn't see why. Renato Diniz got matched up with Derek Lewis. Everyone was picking him to beat Lewis. I did not. Then he got matched up with Tybura. Everyone was picking him to beat Tybura. I just didn't see it. And of course, Tybura ends up taking him to the ground and landing some of the nastiest ground and pound elbows you could do. I mean, that was just really, really what you want to see from a guy once he gets top position and then gets into mount. And I think the guy you give him next, because listen, Tybura has fought most of the guys at the top of the division and lost, unfortunately. He is a good fighter, but I think he needs to get some more wins under his belt. And I think you don't give him someone outside of the top 15 like they just gave him. You got to put some respect on Tybura's name. You give him another guy, and I think this guy is number 14, Marcos Rogerio de Lima. He's done well. He's done bad. He's had good performances, bad performances. Same with Tybura. And they're both kind of at the bottom of that top 15. This is, not saying this is the most exciting matchup ever, but, heavyweight is kind of a weak weight class. And I just think this is the next match you make. It makes sense for both of them. It makes sense for the division. This is what you do. And winner is the official gatekeeper of the heavyweight division. Next, and I think this is my last pick of the night. Oban Elliott had a great knockout over Basel Hafez. The fight was a little bit lackluster in the first 2 rounds, but then round 3, 40 seconds in, Oban Elliott, huge right hand, puts Basel Hafez out. Great punch, great performance. Now, I don't think you give him a top 15 guy either. I think Oban Elliott is now 3-0 in the UFC, which is great. Capped off his third fight with a KO. Great performance. I think you give him another guy who is in a similar position as him. This guy who I'm about to bring in, you know, he started out in the UFC really, really well, was looking like he was going to be a really dangerous guy, even for guys in the top 15 of the welterweight division. This guy is, I believe, 3-1 in the UFC now. He's a really, really strong guy. He's good on the feet. He's got great submission game. I think most of his wins come by submission. That guy is Gabriel Bonfim. Gabriel Bonfim came onto the scene really, really hot. I think he still only has one loss in his career to Nicholas Dalby. Yeah, not much more to say about this one. I mean, I think this is just perfect matchmaking. The winner of this guy gets a top 15 guy. And I think that's it. I think this is just a really, really exciting matchup. Two well-rounded guys. I think this is a slight step up in competition for Oban Elliott, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. And I think Gabriel Bonfim needs to beat a guy like Oban Elliott to prove that, you know, he really was what we thought he was when he first came into the UFC. I think this is good matchmaking. And that's my last pick of the night, guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I completely messed up on some of these. Let me know. You know, I would love to hear if you guys think there's a better matchup for someone that I named on this card. But that's it. See you guys later.